Matt, can you give me an idea of how many greyhounds are registered in Ireland, say this year as opposed to last year and in other years?
Well, if we take the litter situation, this year there were a total, we're down actually 244 litters this year on last year, which is equivalent to an 8% drop. Transfers of ownership would be down 315, equivalent to a 3% drop. Namings 648, equivalent to a 4% drop. And matings, which is the most important one of all, we're down 134 matings, which is equivalent to 4% drop. So just to take the mating situation, or a litter, the average size of a litter is in the region of 6. And if we're down 134 there, you can readily appreciate what way the drift is.
Yeah.
And it has been downward for the last few years.
Okay.
And for example, back in 2002, we were at that stage breeding 4,565 litters.
Yeah.
Last year, 2013, it was back to 2,736. Now that's a very substantial drop.
It really is.
And it kind of poses questions as to, is there any sign of that drop ceasing?
Yeah.
And the simple answer to you is no.
Okay.
And I would consider it a very worrying development. And I refer to it regularly in the sporting press, in the breeding article that I do there. And I can see the problems that the IGB are going to run into.
And what's the reason for this drop?
It's, well, people, for the most case, it's, you know, the various taxes that are hitting them in increasing numbers, say this year as opposed to last year. Now, that's not the full answer.
Okay.
But people have less discretionary money. And
that's what it all boils down to. Really.
That's what it all boils down to. Now, it's not a lack of stud dogs. There's a wide variety of stud dogs on the market, but less people are breeding. And that's the simple fact of life. And do you see, with the British market also in serious decline, where they likewise are not breeding anything remotely like the number of litters they used to, there's so many tracts in England that are closed. So if you breed a litter, you want to be in a position, if you're not going to keep the pups yourself, if you're breeding for your own amusement, fine. But if you're breeding to sell and you're unable to sell, you're left with a litter swinging around your neck that you may not want, particularly if they're all bitches. And bitches, you'll buy, the majority of bitches that are for sale as puppies, you can buy them for €500. Dog puppies can cost you 1,000 upwards.
Yeah.
But most people go for dogs.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And when it's a 50-50 chance there's going to be a dog or a bitch, you know yourself, sometimes it doesn't happen in your favour, you know. But they're the main reasons that I see is the lack of market in the UK for the progeny that's been produced here. And in all honesty, the UK has nowhere else to turn for greyhounds other than Ireland. They don't breed enough remotely to suit their requirements. It's up to us to produce them. And a lot of the low-grade greyhounds here go for bags meetings in the UK. And you're talking about animals that would only be sold for maybe 200, 300, 400 euros. And now we're faced with microchipping those greyhounds, which is going to cost in the region of another 100, off the 300 or 400 or 200 maybe. And breeders, they just are facing facts very quickly, and they say that's not an option we want to face into.
It's not going to be financially viable.
No, exactly.
And if the breeding numbers drop, we've 18 greyhound tracts here in Ireland, which requires an awful lot of dogs to be bred.
Correct.
You know, what's going to be the
Well, I think that situation has already arrived at. There's a serious shortfall of good class greyhounds, particularly for open races. The Sporting Press Oaks failed to fill this year for the first time that I can remember. And that is a serious reflection on the true position that exists. Regularly you will read in the sporting press where stakes have to be postponed from maybe a week or two because the racing managers can't get enough of entries. And you see it here in Shelbourne Park. You saw it in the Cox Cup in Newbridge, which was finished last night. And they only could muster, I think it was, in something like 6 heats. You know, they used to get 72 dogs for that in the old days.
A massive drop.
You know, a massive drop. And but that's, it's not just confined to here or to Newbridge. It's all over the country. There are a lot of stakes, which is the good news. But if you can't get the runners for them, there's going to be a dip in prize money. Sponsors are not happy. And sponsors are the people we want to keep on board.
So we have to keep them on board.
Well, sponsorship is the lifeblood of any sport, and in particular greyhound racing, you know. And I don't know, quite frankly, what the board can do about it, because they have upped the percentage breeders' prize, you know, that which is a help to breeders, but. It's a very difficult situation, and quite frankly, I don't know what the answer is. If you can't sell your progeny into a market that's conducive to breeding at a reasonable return, I mean, all you want to do is clear your costs because you want to breed for yourself as well as for sale, and it's very serious.
So how are we going to get people breeding more dogs?
It's the prize money level, quite frankly, I think is adequate. It's the incentive to breed. The direction has to be towards the breeder, which means taking a share of the prize money, maybe an increased share, but it's the only way I can see. Like, money is what keeps the game going.
Money talks.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the main problem is with bitches. It's the fact that, you know, there's uneconomical to produce bitches. And the sad part, and we notice it here tonight, in the heats of the Oaks, there are no young bitches coming forward in the Oaks this year. The good bitches that are running in the Oaks tonight are all second season or third season. And whereas in the last 2 years we saw good bitches coming through, they haven't survived this Oaks. They did last year and the year before. And, you know, it's a reflection on the position of the market at the moment, I'm afraid to say. But I would always be going to saying to the board, look, direct your energies towards the breeder, because ultimately it's the breeders you want to keep on board.